Maya Turner had always believed in the quiet power of kindness, though the world hadn't always been kind to her in return. At 29, she had settled into a modest routine in Asheville, North Carolina, a town where everyone seemed to know everyone, yet too many faces never truly saw her. Working as a cashier at Martin's Toy Emporium, a small, family-owned shop that still had that creaky floor charm and shelves bursting with toys from a bygone era, Maya often felt like a part of the scenery, unseen, unheard, but always there. It was an overcast Thursday afternoon when the door's bell jingled softly, and a small boy, maybe 6 or 7, tiptoed into the store. His sandy blonde hair stuck out in tufts beneath a worn baseball cap, and his sneakers looked a size too big, with frayed laces dragging along the floor. Maya noticed him the moment he walked in. There was something about the way he clutched a crumpled dollar bill in his tiny fist, his eyes darting nervously around the store like he was on a secret mission. "Hey there, sweetheart," Maya greeted him gently, offering a warm smile from behind the register. "Looking for something special today?" The boy nodded but didn't speak. Instead, he made a beeline for a particular shelf near the window, one stacked with toy spaceships, glittering in silver and blue, little models of possibility. His eyes locked onto one in particular, a slightly dusty model of the Star Voyager X-10, its box adorned with images of astronauts soaring through galaxies. Maya watched him pick it up, turn it over carefully in his small hands, as if the toy might shatter at a single touch. His lower lip trembled. "That's a good one," she said, stepping out from behind the counter, her shoes clicking softly against the old wood floor. "You into space stuff?" The boy finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. It's for my brother. He's in the hospital." Maya's heart tightened. "Oh, honey. I'm sorry to hear that. What's your name?" "Ethan," he murmured, still staring at the toy. "Well, Ethan, I'm Maya. Your brother's lucky to have you." She crouched down to meet him at eye level, her gaze soft, her presence calm and steady like an anchor in a storm. "Do you think he'd like this one?" Ethan nodded, his eyes suddenly shining with hope, but then he glanced down at the dollar in his hand. Maya saw the shift, the sinking realization on his face. "How much is it?" he asked, his voice so small. Maya glanced at the price tag. $14.99. Her heart clenched. She knew that feeling, wanting to give someone you love the world but not having enough to buy even a small piece of it. Ethan's little shoulders slumped, and he started to set the box back on the shelf, his fingers lingering on the corners as if letting go of it would break something inside him. That's when Maya's own memories flooded back, the Christmas when she was 8 and had begged her mom for a pair of roller skates she never got. The birthday when her classmates had accidentally left her off the invite list. The times when kindness could have made all the difference but never came. Her heart spoke before her mind could catch up. "Hey, Ethan," she said softly. "You know what? I think we're having a special today, one free spaceship for a brave little brother." Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. "Really?" "Really," Maya said, her voice steady but warm, her smile hiding the knot forming in her throat. She reached out and gently placed the toy back in his hands. "You take this to your brother. Tell him it's from a friend who thinks he's pretty awesome." For a long second, Ethan just stared at her, as if trying to decide if it was a trick. But then his face lit up like a Christmas tree, and without another word, he threw his arms around Maya's waist in a spontaneous hug that nearly knocked the air out of her. His little voice was muffled against her sweater. Thank you so much." Maya's own eyes burned, but she blinked away the tears. "Go on, now," she whispered, ruffling his hair. "Make your brother's day." As Ethan ran out of the store, clutching the toy to his chest, Maya leaned against the counter, her breath shaking. She hadn't even thought about the price. $14.99 was more than she could afford to spare. But somehow, it didn't matter. What she didn't notice was Mr. Carter, the store's manager, watching the scene unfold from the doorway of his small office in the back. His lips were pursed, his arms crossed over his chest, and there was a thin line of disapproval etched into his forehead. Maya caught his eye, and for a fleeting moment, she felt a chill, a warning. He said nothing then, but as she rang up the next customer, she felt the weight of his gaze, heavy like a storm cloud brewing in the distance. Outside, the gray sky darkened, and the rain began to fall in soft, steady sheets, tapping against the windows like a quiet, persistent knock. Maya watched the boy disappear down the street, the toy spaceship gleaming under his arm, and for just a second, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, her small kindness had made a difference. She didn't know yet how much that difference would mean, or how, years from now, the kindness she had sown would come back to her like a miracle in the dark. The days after Ethan's visit passed in a quiet blur for Maya. The toy store ticked along in its usual rhythm, customers wandered in, drawn by nostalgia or necessity, kids giggling at the shelves of games and stuffed animals, and Maya, as always, at the register, offering smiles and polite greetings like a well-rehearsed song. But the memory of Ethan lingered like a soft melody in her mind. Every now and then, she'd glance at the empty spot on the shelf where the Star Voyager X-10 had been and feel a warm, bittersweet ache. She wondered if Ethan's brother had liked the toy. Did it bring him a moment of joy in that sterile hospital room? Did it make him feel like a hero, even if just for a little while? Maya never got to ask. Ethan didn't come back, not that week, not the next. Instead, what came was something far less comforting. It was a Tuesday afternoon, just before closing time, when Mr. Carter finally spoke up. He'd been watching her more closely than usual, and Maya could feel the tension crackling between them like static in the air. "Maya," he called, his voice clipped and cold, as she was wiping down the counter. "A word, please." Her stomach tightened. She turned, forcing a smile. "Yes, Mr. Carter." He gestured toward the back office, his expression unreadable. Maya followed, heart thudding in her chest. Inside, the office smelled like old paperwork and stale coffee. The blinds were half closed, casting striped shadows across the desk. Mr. Carter sat down and motioned for her to do the same. "You've been here, 2 years now," he began, his tone casual but sharp. "You're a hard worker, Maya. Always polite, always on time." Maya nodded, uncertain where this was going. "But," he continued, his eyes narrowing, "I noticed you gave away merchandise last week. That toy spaceship, free of charge. To that boy." Maya's throat went dry. He didn't have enough money. His brother was in the hospital, and it just... Carter raised a hand to stop her. "It doesn't matter. This is a business. We're not a charity, Maya. Every item here has a price. You can't just hand things out because you feel sorry for someone." Her cheeks flushed hot with shame and frustration. "I was trying to help." "Help doesn't pay the bills," Carter snapped. He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "I like you, Maya. You've been reliable. But if this happens again, we'll have to reconsider your position here. Understood?" Maya's stomach sank like a stone. She swallowed hard, nodding stiffly. Understood. As she left the office, the warmth of that moment with Ethan seemed to fade into a cold, gray fog. The rest of the day dragged, each customer's smile feeling a little more forced, each transaction a reminder of her place in a world that valued profit over people. That night, as Maya walked home under the dim streetlights, the drizzle soaking her thin jacket, she couldn't shake the feeling of smallness. The world felt big and unyielding, and she was just a tiny piece in a machine that didn't care. Her apartment, 2 cramped rooms above a laundromat, felt lonelier than usual. She heated up a can of soup, stared at the flickering TV without really seeing it, and tried not to cry. But then, a knock at the door jolted her. Confused, Maya opened it to find an envelope taped to the outside. No name, no note. Just a plain white envelope. Inside, there was a small, folded piece of paper and a photograph. The photo was of Ethan and a boy who must have been his brother, both of them grinning wildly, holding the Star Voyager X-10 between them like it was the crown jewel of the universe. The boy in the bed wore a hospital gown, his head bald from chemo treatments, but his eyes sparkled with life. Maya's heart clenched. She unfolded the paper, which was written in a child's careful handwriting. "Thank you for the spaceship. My brother loves it. He says he's going to fly it to the moon. You made him smile, and that made me happy. I hope you're happy too. Love, Ethan." Tears spilled down Maya's cheeks before she could stop them. She pressed the note to her chest, her breath shuddering. For the first time in weeks, she felt seen. She felt like she mattered. But the world wasn't done testing her yet. 2 weeks later, on a chilly Friday morning, a knock came at her door again, this time, a different kind. When she opened it, a man in a crisp navy suit and a badge clipped to his belt stood in the hallway. "Maya Turner?" he asked. "Yes? I'm Officer Daniels. We need to speak with you about a theft reported at Martin's Toy Emporium." Her blood ran cold. "A theft?" she echoed, her voice barely a whisper. He nodded. "We've received a report that you gave away merchandise without authorization. That constitutes theft under company policy, and we're obligated to investigate." Maya's hands trembled. "It was one toy," she tried to explain. "For a little boy. His brother was sick." "I didn't." "I'm going to need you to come down to the station," Daniel said gently but firmly. "We'll get your statement there." Maya felt the floor tilt beneath her. Her world, already fragile, began to crumble. As she sat in the back of the squad car, the city lights blurring past the windows, she wondered how a simple act of kindness could lead her here. And she had no idea that the universe, in its strange, unexpected way, was already setting in motion a chain of events that would change her life forever. Maya sat in the stark, cold interrogation room, the smell of disinfectant stinging her nose. The walls were an institutional gray, the hum of fluorescent lights overhead a constant, low buzz that made her feel small and insignificant. Officer Daniels sat across from her, flipping through a thin folder with her name printed on it in bold black letters. Every rustle of paper felt like a thunderclap in her ears. She tried to explain, about Ethan, his brother, the spaceship, and the moment that had seemed so simple and good at the time. Her words tumbled out in a frantic rush, her voice shaking with the weight of it all. But Daniels just listened quietly, occasionally jotting down notes, his expression unreadable. "Look, Maya," he said finally, his voice calm but firm, "I can tell you're not some hardened criminal. This doesn't feel like a theft in the traditional sense, but the store filed an official complaint. That means we have to document it, follow the process. You'll likely be issued a citation, maybe a court date." Maya nodded numbly, a lump forming in her throat. She felt like a child being scolded for a mistake she didn't fully understand. "Try to keep your head up," Daniels added, almost softly. "Sometimes, kindness has a way of coming back around." But as she walked home hours later, her feet dragging, Maya wasn't sure she believed that anymore. The next few days were brutal. Word had spread fast in the small community. Maya felt it in the way people looked at her, sideways glances, whispered comments behind cupped hands. Some customers at the store avoided her altogether, others stared a little too long, as if she were some kind of cautionary tale. Even Mr. Carter's attitude shifted. Where once there had been a grudging tolerance, now there was a cold, clipped detachment. He barely spoke to her except to issue instructions, and every word felt like it was being delivered from a mountaintop far above her. Maya began dreading her shifts. The register keys felt heavier under her fingers, the constant ding of the door chime like a cruel reminder of her failure. She thought about quitting more than once, but rent wasn't going to pay itself. So she pushed through, each day a little harder than the last. Her nights were no easier. Sleep came in broken fragments, her mind replaying that moment with Ethan over and over, his hopeful smile, the way his small hand clutched the spaceship, and the picture of his brother in that hospital bed. Had she done the right thing? Or had her good intentions been naive, a childish hope in a world that wasn't built for softness? She didn't know. Then, on a rainy Saturday afternoon, the universe shifted again. Maya was wiping down the counter when a man walked into the store, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a sharp charcoal suit that looked expensive. His presence commanded attention, turning heads as he moved through the aisles like he owned the place. His dark skin gleamed under the store lights, and there was a quiet confidence in his stride, a sense of purpose that set him apart from the usual customers. Maya watched him approach, her heart quickening for reasons she couldn't explain. "Excuse me," he said, his voice deep, warm, and steady. "Are you Maya Turner?" She blinked in surprise. "Yes, I am." He extended a hand, and she hesitated for a beat before shaking it. "I'm Jordan Matthews," he introduced himself. "I'm a partner at Matthews and Price law firm." Maya's stomach flipped. "A lawyer?" "I'm not here about the store," he added quickly, sensing her panic. "Actually, I'm here because of you." Her brow furrowed. "Me?" Jordan nodded, pulling something from the inner pocket of his suit jacket. It was the photograph Maya knew by heart, Ethan and his brother, grinning with the spaceship between them. Her breath caught. "I'm Ethan's uncle," Jordan explained. "I'm also David's uncle, Ethan's older brother. He passed away 2 days ago." Maya's hand flew to her mouth, a soft gasp escaping her lips. "Oh my God. I'm so sorry." Jordan's eyes softened, his voice thick with grief but also something else, something determined. "David's final weeks were hard, but that toy, that little spaceship you gave him? It became his world. He slept with it every night. He told everyone who visited that it was his ticket to the stars. It gave him hope, even when things were dark." Tears pricked at Maya's eyes, threatening to spill. "I wanted to thank you, Maya," Jordan said quietly. "And there's more." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a slim, elegant envelope. Maya took it with trembling fingers and unfolded the letter inside. The words were written in a neat, flowing script, addressed to her. It was from David. He'd written it in the final days of his life, and it was a message of gratitude, about how the spaceship had given him something to look forward to, how it had made him feel brave, like a hero. At the bottom, he'd drawn a little rocket ship with stars all around it. Maya's tears flowed freely now, her vision blurring as she tried to read. Jordan spoke again, his voice steady. "Maya, you changed David's life in a way none of us could. I've seen a lot of pain in my line of work, but I've also seen how small acts of kindness can ripple out in unexpected ways. My family and I want to help you. We'd like to offer you a job at our firm. We need someone with your heart. Someone who sees people." Maya stared at him, stunned, the weight of the moment crashing over her like a tidal wave. I don't know what to say," she whispered. Jordan smiled gently. "Say yes." Maya's hands shook as she held the letter, the words blurring as her tears fell onto the paper. It was a simple note, just a few sentences scribbled by a dying boy, but it felt heavier than any document she had ever read. The weight of David's gratitude, the innocence of his dreams, the heartbreak of his short life, all of it pressed down on her like a tidal wave. Jordan sat across from her, his expression gentle but resolute. His presence felt like a storm had passed, leaving behind calm waters but with an undercurrent of something deeper. "We believe in investing in people," Jordan said softly, his eyes locking onto hers. "Not just resumes or degrees. People. And you, Maya, you showed a kind of heart that can't be taught." Maya felt her throat tighten. For so long, she had believed she was invisible, just another face behind a counter, another black woman people looked through rather than at. Now, sitting in front of this man, hearing these words, she felt seen in a way that shook her to the core. "I don't know much about law," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. Jordan smiled. "That's okay. We'll train you. The important thing is your compassion, your ability to connect with people. We need that." It felt surreal. Just days ago, she had been sitting in a cold, empty room, feeling like her life was falling apart. Now, a door had opened, a door she never even knew existed. But as with all blessings, there were shadows lurking. The following Monday, Maya arrived at the Matthews and Price offices for her first day. The building was sleek and modern, a towering glass structure that seemed to shimmer under the city lights. Inside, the air buzzed with energy, phones ringing, heels clicking against marble floors, quiet conversations in hushed tones. Maya felt out of place. Her thrift store blazer and modest skirt were no match for the sharp, tailored suits around her. People glanced at her with curious eyes, some polite, some dismissive. A few, she noticed, barely concealed their surprise that someone like her had been hired at such a prestigious firm. Jordan introduced her to the team, mostly white men and women, a few people of color scattered here and there. He assigned her to a department that handled community outreach cases, evictions, discrimination claims, small civil suits. It was a world Maya had never been part of, but it was also a world where she knew stories mattered. Her own story had brought her here. Her first week was a blur of learning, legal terms she could barely pronounce, stacks of paperwork, client files that read like chronicles of injustice. She shadowed paralegals and assistants, absorbing as much as she could. It was overwhelming, but she pushed through, staying late to study, asking questions when she didn't understand. And yet, the whispers followed her. At the water cooler, in the break room, when they thought she wasn't listening. Affirmative action hire, someone muttered once. Bet she won't last a month, another said. I heard she gave away store merchandise and almost got arrested. How's she qualified for this? Maya tried to brush it off, but each comment was a pinprick, a reminder that she didn't belong in their eyes. It was the same story she had lived her whole life, judged by her skin, by assumptions, by the weight of history she hadn't written. But Maya wasn't the only one watching. Across the firm, in an office lined with dark wood and diplomas, sat Margaret Price, the senior partner and co-founder, a white woman in her 60s with a reputation for being both sharp as a whip and cold as ice. Margaret had heard the gossip too, and she wasn't pleased. One afternoon, she called Jordan into her office. Jordan, she began, her voice crisp, I need to understand something. This new hire, Maya Turner. What's her story? Jordan took a slow breath, choosing his words carefully. She's someone who's seen hardship, Margaret. But she's also someone who shows up when it matters. She helped a dying boy find hope. I believe that matters more than a law degree. Margaret's eyes narrowed. This is a law firm, Jordan. Not a charity. She's not a charity case, Jordan countered, his tone steady. She's an investment. And I'm willing to stake my reputation on that. There was a long, tense silence. Let's hope you're right, Margaret said finally, her lips tight. Back in the trenches, Maya had no idea of the storm brewing upstairs. She focused on her work, determined to prove herself. She helped an elderly woman file a complaint against a landlord who had been ignoring mold issues. She listened patiently to a single mother's story about workplace harassment, taking detailed notes. She even offered to stay after hours to help a man fill out forms he didn't understand. Each case chipped away at her fear, reminding her that she was here for a reason. She wasn't just a token hire or a charity case. She was someone who cared. Someone who saw people. But the real test was yet to come. Late one evening, as Maya was gathering her things, Jordan approached her with a file in his hand. Got a minute? He asked, his expression unreadable. Of course, Maya said, nerves buzzing in her chest. He handed her the file. This just came in. It's complicated. A racial discrimination case involving the police department. They're stonewalling the family, but they reached out to us for help. I think you should take point on it. Maya's heart raced. Me? Jordan nodded. You. Her hands trembled as she opened the file. Inside were photos of a black teenager named Marcus Jenkins, bruises on his face, a police report full of vague statements, and a desperate letter from his mother begging for someone to care. Maya swallowed hard. This wasn't just paperwork. This was real. This was life and death. She looked up at Jordan, her voice quiet but firm. I'll do my best. He smiled, a flicker of pride in his eyes. That's all I ask. Outside, the city lights glowed against the dark sky, and Maya felt a spark ignite in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, kindness did come back around. But she knew this was only the beginning. Because the real fight, the one that mattered, was just starting. Maya sat at her tiny desk, the dim glow of her desk lamp casting long shadows across the file in front of her. Marcus Jenkins' face stared back at her from a police mugshot, his eyes swollen shut, his lips split and bruised. A 14-year-old boy. A child. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages, the hospital report, the officer's statement, the blurry body cam footage. It was all there, but it wasn't enough. The system had closed ranks, the police union had issued a blanket denial, and the official narrative painted Marcus as combative and resisting arrest. But Maya knew the truth. She felt it in her bones. That night, sleep eluded her. She sat on her couch, the file spread out before her, her laptop open with news clippings and legal definitions. The world outside her window seemed quiet, too quiet, like the calm before a storm. She thought of David, the boy who had written her that note, the boy whose life she had touched with a simple act of kindness. She thought of Jordan, taking a chance on her. And she thought of every whispered comment in the office, every glance that seemed to say, "You don't belong here." Maya clenched her fists. No, she thought fiercely. I do belong here. And I'm going to prove it. The next morning, Maya was at the office early, a large coffee in one hand, Marcus' file in the other. She approached Jordan's office, her heart pounding. He looked up from his desk, surprised. I need to talk to you, she said, her voice steady despite the fear bubbling inside her. Of course, he said, gesturing for her to sit. I want to take the Jenkins case, she said, placing the file firmly on his desk. Not just as an assistant. I want to lead it. Jordan raised an eyebrow. That's a big ask, Maya. I know, she said, her voice gaining strength. But I can do this. I have to do this. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. It's yours. But be ready, Maya. The backlash on this, it could get ugly. Maya nodded, determination burning in her eyes. I'm ready. What followed was a whirlwind. Maya spent days combing through the evidence, reaching out to Marcus' family, interviewing witnesses who were afraid to speak out. She learned about the officers involved, Officer Dale McCormick and his partner, Tom Blake, both of whom had spotless records on paper but were whispered about in the neighborhood for their heavy-handed tactics. Marcus' mother, Angela Jenkins, was a soft-spoken woman in her late 30s, her voice quivering as she recounted the night of the arrest. He was just a kid, Angela said, her hands trembling as she held a faded photo of Marcus in a football jersey. They said he was trespassing, but he was walking home from his friend's house. They said he resisted, but he's small, Miss Turner. They beat him like he was a grown man. Maya's throat tightened, but she kept her composure, taking notes, asking questions, recording every detail. As the days passed, she felt the weight of Marcus' story pressing down on her like a mountain. The injustice was suffocating, but she refused to let it bury her. At the firm, the whispers grew louder. Why is she handling that case? A senior associate muttered to a colleague. It's a minefield. It'll blow up in her face. Margaret Price, the formidable co-founder, called Jordan into her office again. Jordan, this case, it's dangerous. We have police contracts, city clients. If this gets too messy, we could lose millions. Jordan sighed. I know, Margaret. But we can't turn our backs on people like Marcus. Margaret's eyes were cold, her voice sharp. We can. And maybe we should. Jordan left the meeting with a heavy heart, but he didn't stop Maya. He didn't warn her. He let her fight. The turning point came when Maya found a security camera. It was a long shot, a hardware store across the street from where Marcus was arrested. The store owner, an older man named Frank Reynolds, was hesitant at first, clearly worried about getting involved. But Maya persisted, visiting him several times, explaining what she was trying to do. Finally, Frank sighed, rubbing his forehead. You know, I have a grandson about Marcus' age. If it were him, I'd want someone to fight for him too. He handed her a USB drive. Here. You didn't get this from me. Maya's hands shook as she plugged it into her laptop. The footage was grainy, but it was enough. It showed Marcus walking down the sidewalk, a backpack slung over one shoulder. A police cruiser pulled up beside him. The officers got out. Marcus raised his hands. They grabbed him. They threw him to the ground. And then, blurry but unmistakable, a punch to his face. Another. Another. Maya felt her stomach turn. She had the proof. Now came the hard part, what to do with it. That evening, she met Jordan at a quiet cafe. She showed him the footage, her voice steady but urgent. This is it, Jordan. We have to take this public. Jordan exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. Maya, you know what this means. If we go public, the backlash, it could destroy us. I don't care, Maya said fiercely. They'll destroy Marcus if we don't. For a long moment, Jordan said nothing. Then he looked up at her, a slow smile spreading across his face. You're fearless, he said softly. And you're right. Let's do it. The next day, the footage was leaked to the press. It went viral within hours, news outlets picking it up, activists sharing it, hashtags trending on social media, #Justice for Marcus. The backlash was swift and brutal. The police department issued a statement calling the video taken out of context. The officers' union threatened legal action. Protesters gathered outside the firm's building, both for and against the case. Maya received anonymous messages, some praising her courage, others filled with hate and threats. At the firm, the tension was palpable. Margaret Price summoned Maya into her office, her face like stone. You've stirred up a hornet's nest, Miss Turner, she said coldly. I hope you're ready for the consequences. Maya met her gaze, her voice calm and unwavering. I'm ready. That night, as Maya walked home, exhausted but resolute, her phone buzzed. A message. From an unknown number. It read, "Thank you for fighting for my brother. He believed in people. And you made him believe in hope again." It was signed, David Matthews' little brother. Maya stopped in her tracks, her breath catching in her throat. A single tear rolled down her cheek. The kindness she had shown years ago had come full circle, rippling outward, connecting her to lives she never imagined. And the fight wasn't over. Not by a long shot. The courthouse was buzzing like a hive on the day of the hearing. Reporters crowded the entrance, activists held signs high, and the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Maya Turner adjusted her blazer, her heart pounding but her face calm and focused. This was the moment everything had led to, the chance to bring justice for Marcus Jenkins and prove that even one act of kindness could change lives in the darkest times. As she stepped inside, she caught sight of Angela Jenkins sitting quietly with her lawyer, her eyes bright with hope and fear. Maya gave her a reassuring nod. Across the courtroom, Officer Dale McCormick sat with his defense attorney, his usual bravado replaced by a wary glance. The judge called the court to order, and Maya began her opening statement, her voice clear and unwavering. Your Honor, this case is about much more than one boy's injury. It is about accountability, justice, and the courage to stand against systemic wrongs. Marcus Jenkins was a child walking home, and instead of protection, he received violence. The evidence we present today will show the truth behind his arrest and the urgent need for change. Maya presented the security footage, the hospital reports, and witness testimonies, each piece building an undeniable picture of misconduct. The courtroom murmured, and even the officers in the back exchanged uncomfortable glances. When it was Officer McCormick's turn, his defense was weak, relying on vague claims of procedure and resisting arrest. But Maya was prepared. She questioned him with precision, exposing inconsistencies and bias. Hours later, as the judge deliberated, Maya sat silently, the weight of the day settling on her shoulders. Then, the verdict came. Based on the evidence presented, this court finds that Officer Dale McCormick used excessive force in the arrest of Marcus Jenkins, the judge declared. Appropriate disciplinary actions will follow, and this court encourages further review of police conduct policies to prevent future incidents. The courtroom erupted in a mixture of applause and stunned silence. Angela Jenkins wept openly, hugging Maya as if she had saved her son's life, and in many ways, she had. Outside the courthouse, news cameras swarmed. Maya's face was everywhere, the young lawyer who took on the system and won. But more than the headlines, it was the personal messages that touched her most. David Matthews' little brother approached her, a shy smile on his face. "Thank you," he said simply. "You believed in us." Maya smiled back, remembering the toy she once gave David years ago, the small seed of kindness that had grown into this moment of justice. Weeks later, Maya stood in the same neighborhood where it had all begun. The community was healing, conversations about change blossoming in local forums and schools. Maya had been invited to speak at a rally, her story inspiring others to believe that courage and compassion could break barriers. Her phone buzzed again, a message from Jordan, "You did it. Proud to stand with you." Maya looked up at the sky, the sun breaking through the clouds, and for the first time in a long while, she felt truly free.